And I just find it like when it comes to education space, it's just, yeah, like right now it's just so outdated. And I do feel like the information that we have right now that's available, the speed at which it's changing, it's just so quick that I just feel like it's inevitable to get to a stage where you have everyone has just their own like AI teacher, which follows them from when they're born to when they die. I just feel like that is the best way to learn. You've got your own AI personal teacher that knows you from when you're a kid, knows what you need to learn and how you learn and helps you learn like on a personalized level up to the point you're you, yeah, goodbye. Because I think I was reading a book by this girl called Katie. She wrote a book on like, AI marketing, AI and marketing and sales, and I introduced her to Ricky. I've got a quote. I was reading her book in a bookstore, and I messaged her on LinkedIn and said, "Oh, I have cake in your book. Would love to connect." And now we have like a cool book, so that's pretty cool. But she was
Nice.
talking about we're getting to a stage of just like, yeah, just the it's like so necessary to be able to self educate yourself and never stop learning just because of how quickly the world is changing. It's like if you choose to not learn after university, you're gonna be left behind just because of how quick everything is. So it's pretty interesting time. It's both really exciting, also just like, you wanna learn everything, which means there's also more distractions. I think that's one of the lessons I learned in 2023 going into like the podcast, what did we learn and how do we want to get better? I definitely learned a lot in 2023 when it comes to like business and just the stuff that I really suck at and the stuff that I really need to get better at. Because, I fell into this space through podcasting and through kind of making friends. And I realized that making friends and doing business is quite different. It's really easy to go on a call and spend like an hour talking, to someone who you want to do business with. And, it ends up getting more like about life and stuff like that. And you don't really get to the point. And I think as someone who's, still relatively new, it's like, it's just so easy to focus on just, building a personal relationship. But actually, when it comes to business and getting things done and like growing quickly and stuff like that, it's a lot more, yeah, it's just better to just go straight to the point. So I think that's one of the lessons I learned.
For me, for 2023, it's been a similar sort of learning. I came into blockchain and then met Lamar and Ricky through what I was doing in the education space. So I came in with the mindset of an educator, right? I'm looking to solve problems that people have in terms of gaps in understanding. I'm pretty good at doing that for other people, but in terms of doing it for myself, it's taken me a part of a year to shift that mindset to an inward focus, really. Like I'm not trying to solve problems for other people now. I'm trying to solve problems for myself at the same time as solving problems for other people in a way that means that I'm going to share in the outcome. I'm looking after myself, and in doing that, with that perspective shift, everything has changed. Like the way that I'm showing up to calls, the way that I'm applying myself to whatever it is that I'm doing. It's no longer a case of I'm doing this for someone else. Is I know I'm choosing to do this for someone else at the same time as getting something from it, be that learning, be that pay, be that whatever. And it's been an interesting headspace to get into because it feels like sometimes it feels a bit selfish. Am
Yeah.
I being selfish in this kind of interaction? But that's not necessarily a bad thing because no one's going to look after you but you, right?
Mm.
Especially in tech, especially in fundraising, especially in startups. You've really got to put yourself forward and put yourself first. And there are people who will understand that, and there are people who won't understand that, and that's fine.
That's a really cool like thing you brought up because you came in as an educator and I think I came in as like still the student, and what we're both aiming to achieve is, to become people who are more like business orientated and like outcome focused. I think same like that's also one of the things that I kind of had to accept is like you need to know your value sometimes, and you need to know that, it doesn't matter about like age or where you come from or anything. Like if you can help someone add value and behind like who you can bring to the table to like solve someone's problem, you kind of need to be able to also ask for what you deserve, your value, your worth. And sometimes like I think that's more like a mindset problem, like an internal self-esteem thing that probably both of us have we are working on. So 2023 for me is definitely going from, being a student to trying to be, more learning about business. But at the end of the day, it forced me to go and look in me. Like it forced me like a lot to look inside, who I am as a person, why am I here? Like when it comes to like what insecurities do I have that I'm showing to the world, and when I'm on calls and with founders, it's so crazy how much, working towards becoming an entrepreneur forces you to like grow as a person and look at some like, just look really deep into yourself, and then you realize it's just so deep. You just feel it never ends. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that reminds me of a quote I've seen a couple of places. I'm not sure of the original source, but it's entrepreneurship is personal development masquerading as the pursuit of financial freedom, right?
mm,
Like people get into entrepreneurship because they want to achieve some sort of financial goal. They want some sort of independence. They want to run their own thing. They want to pursue their interests. They want to see what they can achieve in a very specific domain. But the development doesn't happen in just that domain. It will very quickly find and show you your insecurities, your inefficiencies, areas where you lack, areas where you are far stronger than you realize. And accepting those things is tough, right?
mm,
Because it ends up being a mirror, and mirrors only show you what is there. They're not going to show you anything that isn't there, and you're forced to look at these things that sometimes they're pretty comfortable. It's like, oh, I'm pretty good at that. I'm surprised that was something that I was good at. This is a way that I'm able to add value in a given context. Versus, I didn't realize that was there, or I didn't realize that was still there. That was something that I thought I'd taken care of a few years ago, and kind of accepting that that's what's happening, and that all of the feelings of anxiety and insecurity and questions as to, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right way to be doing things? What's going on? Why isn't this easier? Just accepting that that's kind of a part of the process. That's been
mm.
massive, massive lesson. And it's one that I keep learning. And it's interesting that you mentioned that you're looking to transition from being a student. I feel that I'm transitioning back to being a student. I think
I
I kind of
think
came into this thinking that I knew everything, and I've realized now, what is it, the Dunning-Kruger effect? The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. I am now very aware that there's a lot that I do not yet know.
yeah, no, I think maybe I should explain it a bit more. I definitely have so much that I don't know. I'm definitely still a student, but I think that the old me would see that I'm a student and that I have nothing to offer. All I can is just keep asking people for help, keep asking people to learn from them. Whereas I think, this year I'm more at a stage where like I'm still here to learn from people who are better than me, but I can also have, I also have a lot to give now. I have a lot to share from my experience, and I've learned like I think, being able to surround myself with people who are just like miles ahead, not just like a few steps, but like miles ahead in 1 year, and see everything that they do, it just like, it forces you to look at yourself and you're like, oh, wow, like there's so much I need to work on. But at the same time, because I've learned all that stuff, I feel confident to say that, what, I know what this person who's generating, 10 million plus is doing every day. I think I know, like, if I share it with someone else, I think it will help them. And if they doubt me, then it's not my problem. But I do think, like, when it comes to, accepting things, like, definitely you need to, that's the hard thing. Like, you see what you're doing, you realize you need to change, and you don't really, there was a point this year that I just felt really uncomfortable in who I was as a person, and like, oh, is this like me? Like, I don't like who I am. And then it's like, but I can't escape who I am. So it's kind of, yeah, you need to accept that this is you, but then also know that you know, you change. Change is very normal. Change is good. You don't want to be the same person. Like, I see people who are the same every year, and it's kind of like, okay, I know I don't want to be like that. And I know I look at myself now, I don't really like who I am now. But at the same time, I'm way better than I was like before. So yeah, I agree with you. Acceptance. Which brings me to my next point, which I think both of us learn, is like accepting what we are really good at and learning that actually we can, when it comes to business, we can learn and leverage each other. So, a great part about working on building, my venture studio, and I'm sure you building your venture studio, is that we can do what we're really good at, and we have the right people around us, who are all helping each other using, doing what they're really good at and accepting that this is how it is like, I suck at this, you're amazing at this, let's work together. And like immediately we help other people, we help ourselves achieve an outcome that is just, really big and valuable and quick and efficient. And it's just like, yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid, including myself, afraid to like ask for help sometimes.
I couldn't agree more, to be honest. I think the biggest learning I've had that is that you can learn and do the same time. A lot of the time in the past, it's been the case, right, I don't know how to do this thing. I'm going to stop doing this thing, learn how to do this thing, and then come back to doing this thing, right? Which, now that I've said it out loud, doesn't sound like a particularly smart way of doing things. The easiest way to learn how to do something is to do the thing over and over and over and over again. And you get better at the thing as you do the thing, as opposed to stepping back and reading a book on how to do this thing, or talking to someone who's done the thing and learn how they've done the thing. Why not just do it yourself? And like in regard to asking for help, exactly that, like the more that you realize what you are good at, invariably you end up realizing what you're not good at as well. And there's a lot of talk in self-development circles, self-improvement, about working on your weaknesses. And yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously it's an important thing to do. You want to get better at the things that you're not particularly good at. But if you're working on your weaknesses at the expense of leveraging your strengths, you're leaving an awful lot on the table. So by asking for help or connecting with people who are good at the things that you're not good at, and using those people to offset those weaknesses, you're also helping that person to use their strengths at the same time, which means that everyone is benefiting from this kind of interaction. And if you're putting things together and you're constructing things in a way that all parties involved in a given interaction or a given transaction are benefiting, then why not? Why not use people in that way? Because ultimately it's going to get you far closer to where you want to be, to where you feel like you need to be. And it's going to help the other person do the same thing as well. So swallowing one's pride, managing the male ego of thinking I can do all of this by myself and asking for help is weakness. It's been an interesting one, but now it's so much easier. It's just a muscle, right? You just keep doing it and you learn how to do it in a way that's going to help.
Yeah, no, me too. I think same here, swallowing that pride, like including the
It's
lessons.
painful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Admitting to yourself that I need some help.
but another lesson that I learned is that there are sometimes distractions that I didn't realize they were distractions. It's kind of like, okay, I have this goal, this outcome. I need to message this group of people in this category and to, offer this. And then very easily on LinkedIn, I say, oh, this person's doing podcasting. Sounds really interesting. Let me just connect and let me just like see what she's up to. And I see this other person who's doing like video editing. Like, oh, she's cool. She's like, her videos are really interesting, and she's also doing personal branding stuff as well. And we connect and just like have a chat with her. And then I realized, that's actually, even though it's aligned with my personal interest and I'm curious about, and I like meeting new people in different fields, it actually still is a distraction if I have a specific outcome that I'm trying to achieve. So I also kind of, had that realization recently, and it made me think, what if I literally cut out all these mini distractions and just focus on what is it that I need to do to get this outcome? Having this level of awareness when it comes to distractions, I'm going to get like a lot more done if I, actually remove them, which I will remove them. Note to self.
It's the self development aspect of entrepreneurship again, isn't it? Like the more you do, the more people that you engage with who are where you want to be, right? They're doing things that you want to be doing. They're executing in the way that you want to execute. You realize just how many levels there are to this game. And as you start glimpsing those kind of next levels up, you see the kind of that, you can see what's going on, you can see the way that they're operating, and it's like, oh, hang on, right, let me look at what I'm doing at the moment and how I'm doing right now. And very, very quickly becomes apparent where you're not doing the same thing. So the distractions thing is interesting. I heard on Chris Williamson's podcast, I can't remember exactly which episode it was or who it was with, but the number of things that we do on a daily basis that are not doing the thing, right? If the thing is pursuing a given outcome, editing, commenting, liking, reading, whatever, none of those things are doing the thing. None of those things are actually getting you closer to where you want to be. It's all just procrastination masquerading as productivity because it feels like you've moved the needle in some capacity, when in actual fact, you know exactly what it is that you need to be doing to actually move the needle in the direction that you want it to be going. And the stories that we tell ourselves about why I need to re-edit this, or why I should be doing this, or I need to stop doing this and then go and read about it and then do it some more and then I'll be fine because I've read about it. And it's interesting when you start looking at what you're up to through that lens, things become very, very different. The good things are
Why do you
thrown
think we
into,
do that though? What? Because like a lot of people, like we do that. Why do you think? What fear is that? Is it a fear of success, a fear of failure, or habit?
good question. Discomfort. I think there is a tendency personally that I have to things are getting a little bit uncomfortable. Normally that's because I'm doing something or I'm trying to do something that I'm not particularly good at, or I haven't done before, or I have done before, but it hasn't worked out. I'll look for things that are that little bit more familiar. They're a little bit more comfortable than whatever the thing that I'm supposed to be doing is. And they're kind of adjacent to whatever the thing is. So it feels like you're still kind of moving in the right direction, but it's not what I actually need to be doing. So I think it's the avoidance of discomfort is a really big part of it. And then a lack of understanding that discomfort is a part of the process. It's supposed to feel like this. It's supposed to feel hard. It's supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to feel easy all the time. And a lot of the value you get from the process and a lot of where you learn the most is in those moments of discomfort and just kind of accepting that. It's easier said than done, because if it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable, and you're not going to want to particularly sit in that discomfort for any longer than absolutely necessary. But yeah, I think avoidance of discomfort. What about yourself? What do you reckon?
That's a really good point. I think same actually. I think when something's like too different, naturally I probably just automatically go back into something that's just, I feel like I'm in control and it's like a little bit easier, or it's like familiar. I guess it's like working out, you don't want to feel, but the people like working out as well. People like to feel the pain of working out. So, and then they feel good about it. So I guess it's like, I don't know. I think it's the higher you can tolerate pain, the better you'll be in life. I think I do think about this sometimes. I look at people who are doing some really cool things, and sometimes I feel like, does that mean that in order to get to that position, you need to feel discomfort like all the time? And if you don't feel discomfort, then you're not growing, or you don't like you're not you're not really moving. And I don't know. So it's an interesting thing because I don't really like I don't like the feeling of being uncomfortable all the time. But then I also have gone through those phases, and I look back at them and like I do feel like those were the phases that I really did grow like a lot. So I think it's just accepting that, okay, Presence, if you want to grow as a person, if you want to make the most out of your life and really see how far you can go, you're going to need to get used to being uncomfortable more often. So yeah, so
I
discomfort.
think the exercise analogy is a pretty good one there, to be honest. Because if you're pushing yourself, it's going to be uncomfortable. If you keep pushing yourself, it's less uncomfortable over time because your overall capacity increases. So this running, it could be cycling, it could be lifting, whatever. And your capacity to do progressively harder things, which would have caused you much more comfort if you went straight in, increases over time. And I think that's a pretty good way to think about what the process is like, what building a business is like, what getting involved in entrepreneurship is like. As you improve, the more you do the uncomfortable thing, the less uncomfortable the thing becomes. Which means you then have more capacity, it becomes more habitual, it becomes easier, you get more efficient at it, you understand what your blind spots are, and it just does get easier. So I think, it probably is a case of like, you just need to get really comfortable being uncomfortable most of the time, but then also understanding that discomfort isn't always going to be there. It's not always going to be like this.
Yeah, that's why in the beginning, I had this mindset, you can't take breaks. And right now I'm like, I have to make sure, once a week I have some space to just do whatever, like either that be sleeping, reading a book, doing a workout that I just am very like lazy about, or just do, dance, or like just something that just completely takes me out of that discomfort zone is what like will help me, push me further. Let's talk about what we're doing, I think.
Started with a conversation about education. That's a great place to start for you. Tell me about e11evate.
e11evate is a venture studio focusing on helping young founders under 26 to grow and build their companies in AI, tech, gaming, FinTech, expanding towards education. So we are global, helping a lot of people in like universities as well, because from my personal experience of wanting to be an entrepreneur and, throwing myself into it, having no idea how to actually build a company, and also having no network, no knowledge of Web3. Well, okay, not like very bare minimum knowledge of Web3, to now, I've just realized just how like, the challenges that a young founder needs to overcome. And I would say that the challenges that I went through helped me grow as a person, helped me learn and everything, but still was painful. And if I could, build something that would, reduce the pain and reduce the time and the energy that a young founder needs to go through to achieve their dreams, I think that would be like a really, valuable and impactful thing that I would, want to do. Similar to my first business when I got into, university, and I wanted to help students before me to get into university so that they didn't need to spend all those hours and time and energy to write these personal statements. They would know the exact formula. It's kind of like the same mindset towards this, except like a bigger vision. So yeah, it's just bridging that gap, because from my personal experience of working with people like you and people like Ricky and Lamar and everyone who are just, so experienced, they know different things, they have different life experiences about the world. When you combine the brains and like just the different generations and what they see to build something, it's just much better than doing it either alone or doing it with just like a young team, or just like, an older team. I think there's just so much power in combining different, just diversity of thought and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And, before e11evate, I was, very like deep in with Ricky when it comes to building BBA, and just being able to see the growth of that has been the best learning that I can't pay for that at university. And so being able to do the same for like the younger generation is just like, learning and applying what I learned to do the same thing. And it is really exciting, to be honest, and I can't wait for this year.
Why the name?
It came about in a dream, actually. It
Nice.
just came about in a dream, and there's this really weird thing where I've been seeing ones everywhere, 111 everywhere, and it just made a lot of sense. So yeah, I guess that's the answer.
It's as good as answer, good an answer as any. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar sort of thing for me as well. As I mentioned earlier, I got into the blockchain space, Web3, through education. And a couple of years ago, nearly 2 years ago now, actually, ran a free-to-enroll blockchain academy with no marketing budget, no experience of running online, like cohort-based learning experiences, and then 5,000 students from 126 different countries, contributions from 40 plus blockchain protocols, projects ranging from stablecoin providers to DeFi, to layer ones, to gaming, to all sorts. And then off the back of that, connected with Lamar, with BBA as well, and then got more involved in the DAO space, looking at the governance issues that typically plague DAOs. Most DAOs aren't DAOs, they're dinos, they're DAOs in name only, they're not decentralized, they're not autonomous, and they're definitely not organized.
I haven't heard people say DAOs for a while.
There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. They're not front and center in the same way as before, and it's moved more away from the kind of free DAO kind of idea to more of the how can this technology be used to reimagine organizations going forward. So it's no longer just a conversation of right, token vote on things, and that means governing the organization. It's much conversation now in regards to like, this is a pretty interesting idea. How can this be applied to traditional organizational structuring? How can this be used to reimagine the way that we structure corporations, public companies, private companies? What is the bottom line impact? And then how do we build an organization? How do we govern an organization like this? And that's what led me to founding Netcon. So Netcon Ventures, it's my venture studio, similar sort of model to what you're doing in regards to problem solving. Everyone thinks that they need to solve their problems like fundraising. Most of the startup founders that we speak with, and I'm sure this is your experience too, will say, right, I need this much money because this much money means I can do X, Y, Z, which in a very small instance of cases may be the case. If you have to pay for something like licensing, for example, there's not really a way that you can get around that. It's something that actually needs to happen. But the majority of the time, there's this prevailing mindset that the way to do things is to do things on a linear basis. By fundraising, you can increase internal capacity, and then by increasing internal capacity, you might increase revenue or community or monthly active users or whatever. And then you'll hit a limit. And then depending on the profitability of the business, it'll be time for another fundraising round. And while this works in some instances, it doesn't work in all instances. So from the research that I was doing in the DAO space in regards to governance and things like that, I came across this concept of a value net, which is a network of individuals or organizations who are working together as part of a semi-cohesive whole to fill in gaps in their understanding and fill in gaps in their skill set. So similar to what we've spoken about already, but more from like an academic research standpoint. And that's what the name promise to network economy. We're transitioning towards networks. We've been transitioning towards networks really since the mid-90s with the advent of the internet, and then what that did to communication and how individuals were then able to communicate on a direct basis. Information is able to flow much more freely. Now with blockchain, you have the same kind of flow happening in terms of value. You're able to transfer value on a direct basis as opposed to having to go through some sort of centralized intermediary, a bank, this could be some sort of financial institution, this could be whatever. And by unlocking that value flow in the same way that the information flow has been unlocked, by forming these partnership relationships, startups have a massive opportunity to do things incredibly differently. There was a paper that I read the other day which talks about the constellation approach to growth. So instead of being fundraise, grow, fundraise, grow, fundraise, grow, maybe exit, maybe fail, maybe IPO, it's a case of, right, this is what I'm doing. I'm not very good at these things. Form a partnership there. You then form a partnership with a given outside organization, and then all of a sudden your capacity in that specific domain, which might be an area that you're not particularly good at, increases because you're leveraging an experienced organization, or at least they should be an experienced organization in a specific capacity that is good at what they do. And then by doing this in multiple ways, you can end up with this growth model that ends up looking very, very different to the linear model and ends up looking very different. The fabled hockey stick growth that you see with like SaaS startups, for example, that everyone looks for. You've got that linear period and then everything goes out to nuts. This network approach is significantly more resilient, significantly more capital efficient, significantly less risk because you're not looking to try and spend or allocate capital in a way that means you don't burn through it, while also hiring the right people in the right place at the right time to do the right thing in the right way. You're leveraging other people's strengths, you're leveraging other organizations' strengths. So that's where Netcon came from. And that's what the thesis is. I'm looking for startups that can plug into a part of a larger whole to build something fundamentally different, to build a different way of doing things. And it's looking for, my personal area of focus is I love health tech. I find health tech absolutely fascinating. When I was a kid, I was super into science fiction, and I thought things like cybernetics and augmentation and all of that sort of stuff was just awesome. That was one of the first things I wanted to be when I was a kid. I wanted to be a cybernetic engineer. That wasn't a thing then. It was just something that I thought sounded.
I just heard of that word like now.
So cybernetics are basically, if you play Cyberpunk at all, where you're basically just upgrading to the hardware, because we're kind of hardware. It's a similar sort of thing. And I'm looking for things that are going to be net benefit to people, that are to allow them to upgrade themselves in some way. And this obviously has a lot of crossover with gaming as well. That's where a lot of this experimentation is taking place, not necessarily in the real world just yet, but it's coming with the likes of Neuralink and things like that, with a view to finding ways to put these different startups and ideas together in a way that means that you can grow together. You can grow in ways that wouldn't necessarily be possible otherwise through that partnership approach, through that work approach, and then create something new, just create a new model, a new way of doing things, and hopefully help people in terms of the products and the outputs along the way as well.
Yeah, no, you explained it way better than I explained it. But no, I completely agree. I think for me, it's also realizing that this is just a way more efficient. It's just so much more efficient. It's like a new standard. And once it's out, it's like, the traditional VCs are not going to be as appealing anymore to founders. Hiring one person to fill in like 10 different tasks is not as appealing anymore. Like now we're seeing, fractional CMOs and CEOs, COOs, that type is also coming out. So I think like there's just so many problems that a founder will face. Like building a startup is really hard. The mindset that is required, the discomfort that's required just as a person to, be an entrepreneur, that's hard. And then you've got so many other problems when it comes to like the tech side. There's going to be problems in the marketing and just all of that. And it's like, if you have one partner that can come in and just solve all of your problems, you save time of finding other people. You have a trusted relationship with the one partner, and you can keep building more and more stuff afterwards. I think founders are very, some founders I meet, usually early stage founders and the old me as well, is very stingy when it comes to equity. Like they're not willing, especially young founders. It is like, they're 20, they're building a company, and they've got like 100% of equity, and then they're giving like 10-20% away to their co-founders, and suddenly you meet someone who's built like 30 plus companies, generated millions. They come in and say, oh, I'm willing to help you, but I'm not going to take like 5% equity, I'm going to take like a lot more. And then the founder's like, that's crazy. How can you take 40% or more of my company, which I'm not generating any revenue. My team is very young, and like, okay, we just, I like young founders, but we all know that young founders do need to learn more than someone who's already been there, done that. So when you find people who are literally like diamonds, and it's so hard to find, and they're willing to work with you, you need to understand what you can offer. And usually that's, okay, your work ethic. It's like it's the same as finding a job. Is you offer your work ethic, your attitude, everything, but also, a piece of the success as well. So I think that's also kind of, I don't know why, again, I rambled, but it just made me think of like the problems in the space is just people feeling like, again, goes back to the idea of like people feeling like they can do everything by themselves, even though they're struggling. Like they would rather choose the hard way, which sometimes I do that too. I don't know why. Sometimes I just choose the hard way when I can make my life easier by tagging along with people. And I think, trying to work with founders who understand this is key for us, but also I think it's key for founders who are listening to this podcast. And maybe you might want to ask yourself, like, are you making your life harder by refusing a call with someone because of, I don't know, they sounded unprofessional or something like that? But yeah, just don't know how I got into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the connotation of what VC means, right?
Mm.
Like, if you look at the data, there's this concept of value add that 90+% of VCs say they provide. There was a report that I read that I'll get a link out for in the comments to this or in the show notes to this. And this concept of value add is like, right, we'll be able to help you X, Y, Z. Everyone says that. Data from the UK shows nearly 60% of founders feel they have been duped by the VC in regards to value add they actually provide. Like, I'm able to introduce you to people at big investment banks, for example. Well, that might be because they've got connections with an intern who did maybe a couple of rotations there in the summer, and they're no longer there, right? Those connections may not be coming. The VC may not have the capacity, may not have whatever. They might just be trying to get on the cap table and then sit on the coattails of a lead investor, for example. Lead investor has some clout, and if they're in the same cap table as that lead investor, they're going to borrow some of that clout. So I do understand the perspective that a lot of founders have on giving up larger stakes of equity, because if something seems to be true, most of the time it is, right? And I
Yeah.
understand that perspective. I think the big issue is understanding what equity actually means. Like, what does it actually mean? And it's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool for incentivizing. It's a tool for alignment. It's a tool for delivering an outcome in some capacity. So I think it's a case of understanding what that actually means. Like, are you more focused on achieving the outcome? Do you want to get your product out to the market? Do you want that product to be in the hands of as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, so you can actually help people to realize the benefit that you think your product can provide? Or do you want to be the main character? Do you want to be the person who has done this thing and you get to say that you're a successful startup founder and to take control? And I think then it comes down to positioning, because some of the conversations I've had with founders, if I've gone in saying, right, I'm able to help, and it's from like a VC standpoint, like I've got connections with XYZ investors and these individuals are able to invest, then you get one reaction. One thing that I found to be much more effective is saying, right, this is Netcon. Netcon is a venture studio. We're not a typical investor. We come on as a co-founder. And then
Yeah, I say that too.
as a co-founder, it's like, right, when you look for a co-founder, for example, co-founders are supposed to be individuals who complement your skills, right? You're good at something, and there are things that you're not good at. You're looking for co-founders who are able to offset those areas and then support you in what you're already. And then that conversation takes on a very, very different flavor, because it becomes a case of, right, okay, this person or this organization is able to actually provide some real value, as opposed to, here's some cash, I'm going to sit on the cap table, hopefully wait for an exit when the next round comes around, for example. Obviously, not all VCs are like that. Some do provide value, but based on the data, it's not the majority. So having those conversations and getting people to understand that, yeah, you can retain full control of absolutely everything, but do you want to retain 100% of a grape, right, where you built everything, but it's still very small? Or do you relinquish some control? Do you engage in those partnerships? Do you ask for help? And at the end, you end up with 50% of a cake, for example. You've got far more out of it by going the other route. Yes, you lost some control of something you wouldn't have initially planned to give up, but in doing so, you've got far, far more value, and you've got to where you want to be far, far quicker. It's an interesting conversation, sure. I mean, my understanding of what equity is, what it can be used for, how it can be used to align people, how it can be used to incentivize, has definitely changed over the past year or so. That's been one of my biggest learnings, going from this is ownership to this is a tool that I can use to bring people in, has been a really big part of it for me, big realization for me. And now communicating that and finding ways to communicate, that's also it's been a fun exercise, right? Because if you have a conversation, it was terribly because you're not able to communicate that kind of value. Great. It's a learning experience. On to the next one.
Yeah, I think one of the lessons I'm also learning as well is, if anything happens where either the founder doesn't get it or like my teammate doesn't get it, it's always your fault. It's my fault that I cannot or fail to communicate, what I wanted to communicate effectively so that they understood what was actually going on. Because it makes a lot of logical sense. We're not here to hurt anyone. Like, we're here to add as much value, and we're here to help the founders win because we want to add value to the industry and we want to win ourselves. But if the founder took it the wrong way, or if the team member didn't fully understand, because we do a lot of things, we offer like all kinds of services. So people who work with us, it's also confusing for them as well when they come in, because like we're not just doing like one offer, one price, one target audience. We have a 360-degree services. We help all founders in Web3, AI, FinTech, gaming. So also kind of trying to communicate just the level of value and the amount of stuff that we can do for founders to people who join us it's also something that I realize I'm, working on improving as well. So I think it's all, communication. If someone doesn't get it, it's always, take ownership. It's always your fault. How can you communicate it better? I've got so much when it comes to work on when it comes to like communication as well. Again, it's like another series of podcasts, communication in general. So yeah.
The burden of communication is always on the sender, right? If you're communicating with someone and they don't understand what you're saying, that's not their fault. That's something that you need to work on. It's finding ways to improve your communication, be that explanation, be that being more direct, be that being less direct in some instances, depending on the cultural connotation, the cultural flavor of the conversation. Like you mentioned, that we're global. We speak with all kinds of founders from all over the world. Having an understanding of cultural nuances and what it takes to build those relationships in different contexts is huge. And then the more you have these conversations, the more that the notes you game take, right? You review what happened, what went well, what didn't go well, what did I do well, what didn't I do well, how can I improve? It just takes time. But the more you do it, the less you at it. But yeah, you're right. When we come in and we have a conversation and say, what do you need? I can fix this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. This is why you don't need to raise money.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's like, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
We need to do things this way. It's like, well, I mean, you could. But
It's not possible for one human to solve all these problems for me.
Yeah. And then it's the case is, I'm not solving all these problems, but I know a load of people who can solve these problems, who are each good at solving each of those individual problems. And I think it's communicating that, right? It's not just me. I have asked for help, and I have found a group of people who are aligned in terms of the way that they do things, and the way that they operate, who are also looking to solve problems in this way. So when it comes to speaking with those founders, again, that co-founder mentality is like the organization, be that E11evate, be that Netcon, be that whatever, is the co-founder. Like, it's not me who's the co-founder. And then everything that exists within Netcon and everything that Netcon has access to, from partnerships to tech to whatever, is then brought in because we are the co-founder, right? And it's communicating that as a challenge.
I also think, because we're talking about equity, my mindset or like my perspective on money is also changed as well when it comes to what founders can do with money. And also talking to so many founders, we're like, yeah, we need, 2 million to do this. And then when we just keep asking questions, that all they care about is like getting the money in, like that's because they feel like money is going to solve all their problems. And what I realized is money is, we all know it's just a tool. And actually, if we can build what we've built without any money, like there's no excuses. If young founders can build like a game in their bedroom with no money and get users, then why would a founder with an idea need to go to an investor to raise like a few million before they can get anything done? It's really interesting to understand people's perspectives on money and on all these founder calls. I don't know if you've like noticed any interesting things when you talk to founders about this topic.
Oh, absolutely. The mentality that founders who think that money is the way to solve problems have is always quite interesting, because it's that perspective that, right, once I have this cash, then I'll be able to solve it. problems, right? As opposed to, this is the problem, I don't have any cash, how can I fix it? Like, is there a way that I can fix it? And one of the best other examples I've spoken to recently, all of the development has been paid for through professional poker. Like, everything has been paid for by poker winnings. They thought about going out and speaking with investors, but it doesn't add anything they don't already have. They're experienced individuals they raised before on previous startups, and it didn't work out particularly well. And they realized that money isn't going to solve the problem. If you're just getting a pile of cash from someone, but you're not getting anything else, then sometimes it creates more problems, because then you have responsibility to that outside investor, and that outside investor is going to want things to be done in a certain way. You're going to have a degree of responsibility there, and that may end up hurting in the long run. So the conversations with first-time founders versus multiple founders or founders who failed before is different and fascinating, because it seems to be more of a spectrum, right? Like, people start here, they go through things, and they realize that this was not the best place to start. Money was not going to solve all the problems. And then getting to that next level, it's all right. There are other ways to do this. There are other ways to throw, to build. We can fund ourselves, or that we can just do, right? Very, very different mentalities. What's been the most surprising one for you in that regard?
Oh, need to like scroll through I don't know how many calls I've had in this. Yeah, the most surprising one. I think I just find it surprising how some founders are not really open-minded to hearing other ways of doing things, and that they think that they need to get the money in first and then figure it out. Whereas when like we jump on a call and then we tell them, we don't, you can cut down like how much you're raising by this amount. All you need to do is, get access to ABC. You don't need to raise, 2 million. You just basically need 500K to get yourself off the ground and start doing stuff. They will hear that and they still would be like, I still need the 2 million. So it's kind of interesting to see founders who hear another solution which logically makes sense for them as a company, because they don't need to raise as much from outside. They can have more like control, and they just need to maybe like get the same resources through a different way, and they don't they don't really get it. It's kind of like when you're buying clothes, for example. Some people just have to buy this white t-shirt that has, from I don't know, whatever brand it's a white t-shirt. You can't even see the brand name, but it's a white t-shirt from this well-known brand, and you can't go to, I don't know, TK Maxx or somewhere else to get like the same t-shirt, because it's not like, to them it's not the same, when to us it's the same. It achieves the same outcome of wearing a white t-shirt. But I don't know if you get what I mean. But yeah, so I find it quite interesting, because for me, I think if I can get like something that looks exactly the same and is the same, but it's maybe cheaper and like it's from somewhere else, and like, yeah, makes sense. I'd save some money and do that. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that shift in focus, and it's finding founders who are focused on the outcome, right? They're looking at getting whatever it is that they have, or they feel that they have, out into the hands of as many people as possible, as opposed to saying that they've done this thing. And that's interesting. And because, again, I get it. I spent the past year wanting to be the one who said that I did this thing. It's me who did all of these things. And it didn't get me where I wanted to go. So
Yeah, same.
understanding there are different ways of doing things, understanding where you want to be, and you're acting in a way that feels good to you, right? You're aligned on values or whatever is important to you. Then why not take it approach?
Topic again with the website. We've been working for nearly like over a year now. We haven't had a website, and we've just been focusing on taking action. And this is also very interesting as well, when you go on a call and you talk to founders. So what do? We explain everything that we do, what we have access to, and then by the end it's like, can I still check the website? Do you guys have a website? And like, even though you're like physically as a group of people on a call with the founders, like basically telling this is what we do. This is our team. Nice to meet you. This is how we can help. They're still like, but I need to see your website. Otherwise I won't trust you. So it's very interesting to see because, websites, you can do it on Wix and everything. And it's just like, yeah, okay, you can see it, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make much difference. So that also helps us understand people better in terms of founders who need to see your website in order to like trust you, or people who are willing to, understand you as human beings on a call and are willing to like, just start working with you and just see how it goes. Cause yeah, that's also interesting. So the site's going to be out, and then we're going to be teaching people what we've learned essentially. So we have our venture studios, there are other venture studios, and we're basically, this is a new way of building businesses. This is a new standard, and no one's really taught this before in terms of how do you go and build out a venture studio, because it's not like a traditional agency where, you're selling like video editing services or anything. It's a lot different. It's a lot bigger. It's a lot more, just a lot of stuff are involved, a lot of different people are involved. And the fact that, we're doing it, I know people who look at what we're doing and they are thinking, I actually want to do that as well. I want to understand this more. I feel like this is a way to create the impact that I want to create by also building my own venture studio. So we're going to be starting to teach other people this through our first How to Build Your Venture Studio bootcamp, which I'm very excited about, so that people can fully understand, if they want to be like us, if they want to start being a part of this journey, be a part of Elevate, be a part of Netcon, how they can do it and how they can start to build their own venture studio. Connect with us on LinkedIn, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much, Ben, for this conversation. It was really fun.